Hey y'all, it's Michael, and this is part 2 of my wrap-up for January. The first book I'm going to talk about is White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Isenberg, narrated by Kristen Potter. I saw this book floating around BookTube, and I was really intrigued by the premise of it. So let's rewind it back, just so you guys can know where I'm coming from. I was born in the Philippines, and then I came here to the States young, around 8, 7-ish, around there. I always knew that there was a class system. Not even here in the US, but like in the Philippines, there is a clear class system. I mean, it's so obvious. Like, you can even look right now and just know that there is a class system. And growing up here, I was like, oh, there's definitely a class system. Did I know exactly what it was called back then? Probably not. That's what I went into with this book. I was expecting to learn more about the class system. This book I did not enjoy. You can look up the bibliography essentially, and it's long. I mean, you could tell that she did a lot of research. I think where this book fails for me anyways is the writing. It is just I didn't enjoy the writing. First off, it could have been edited. She mainly talks about the Civil War, Civil War, colonial times around that, and then she makes this huge jump to like current times. It seemed like a real, for me, it felt really like I was like, what? It was like really disjointed. The way she described things and how she mentioned things, it seemed really overdrawn and so much verbiage and usage of words. To me, her writing seemed as if that it was like a runaround to just get to the point. And it's like she would explain this long thing. She would arrive at the conclusion, but her going around to arrive at the point of the conclusion instead of just going straight ahead. It's like saying, oh, this four-footed leg creature ran across the yard, hair glistening in the wind. Okay, so you mean a dog. Like, I don't know if this is like my own personal feeling that I got from this book, like if it's from my own experience or like maybe I was just too much in my feelings. But there was this thing that I felt as I was listening to the book. I don't know how to say it, but it felt I don't know how to say it in a nice way, because there probably is no nice way to say it, but it seemed as though she didn't expect for the reader to know that class exists. It's almost like it was like a revelation type of thing. I did learn a few things. I did learn more words to call white people, besides redneck, crackers, hillbillies. There were some really interesting like history behind those words, and then like certain like new words that I was not aware of. So that was really interesting learning, because I always enjoy it. I always enjoy like entomology, like learning entomology. Yeah, entomology, learning like the history of words. I always really enjoy. I always enjoy that. So I did get I did get like little nuggets of information. It just left me wanting more. There were some parts that could have been cut out, and then it also could have been expanded. Now granted, this is a long book as it is. Well, it felt long, but I felt as though like she could have maybe explained more a little bit of the things, because I actually enjoyed more of the current information, and a lot of the things that she did talk about, I already knew. I don't know if they do it anymore because I'm not in school, but here in Georgia, in 8th grade, you took this class called Georgia Studies. It was basically a class specifically just about Georgia, like the history of Georgia. So you learn a lot, and I actually did learn a lot of information from that class when I took it. And a lot of the information that she talks about on there, I was like, oh, I knew that. But yeah, I gave it 2 stars out of 5. The next book that I listened to was Book by M.K. Asante. It was also narrated by him. This is a memoir about M.K. Asante. I didn't click to me until like while I was listening to it, that he is the son of Molefi Asante. I took a African American culture studies course in college. I was like, that name sounds so familiar, and then that's where I heard it from that class. That's one of the most memorable classes I've ever taken in like college. It was so insightful, and like I learned a lot from that. And I was like, oh, that's where I learned it. That's like his name sounds so familiar. He's a prominent speaker of Afrocentricity. God, there's a lot of syllables in that word. This is basically his memoir about him growing up, about him like being a son of someone so important in the African American community during that time. This book was so fantastic on audiobook because the book is written very poetry slam-esque style. In case you don't know, I love going to like open mic nights, like poetry slams. If you watch a couple of my vlogs that I did a while back, you can watch some of them where I go to like some poetry slams. They are fantastic. I love going to them. They're just so much fun. I think that's why I really enjoyed this novel, because since Asante narrates it, it's written in a poetry slam like bam, 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 bam. So it has this flow to it that I was like, oh my god, it's so cool. And some of his usage, the usage of his words during some parts like makes it so impactful. It really brings this sense of rhythm to the novel while I was listening to it. And so I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then learning about his family, it was so insightful seeing his relationship with his, like, not only with his mom, but also his relationship with his dad. And then, like, the things going on in their home while there was this facade that everything was okay. It was really insightful. I just really enjoyed the writing. The poetry slam part was fantastic. For me, it moved a little bit too fast. I think it was just me being greedy, but I kind of wanted more. I wanted more of a flesh out story, memoir-ish, since this is a memoir, but I understand that why he skipped some parts of his life, just because to make the book probably more cohesive. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars out of 5. Next book that I read, and I had to return back to the library, Jam on the Vine by LaShonda Catrice Barnett. I first heard of this from Didi from Brownville Reading, and so I decided to check it out. My library had a copy of it. First off, the cover is so cool because it actually relates to the story. But this is mainly about Iovi Williams, who and we also follow her family. It's basically like a family saga who starts this newspaper business, hence the name Jam on the Vine. While it's mainly about Iovi, we learn her whole family. And there were some moments in this that I was like, wow. The parts about her father, like those parts, it was so interesting. Especially the parts, because this book talks a lot about a lot of things, and it's so crazy because this book, while it's historical fiction, it's the topics and the themes that it covers is still so prevalent right now, especially about media and about like facts and about like what's going on right now. I also oh my god, I really enjoyed the parts about the food, because in the beginning, the description of food is amazing. It's so succulent and moist. I really love the description of food in this book. It's just so good. It was my favorite part. I was like, oh yes, describe to me how you're making these preserves, because it just sounds so good right now. The writing is so compulsive, and there were these parts that really reminded me of living here in the South, because this takes place in like Texas, and then she moves to like Kansas City. But like the little idioms and the little sayings the older senior family members say is like so true. People really do it down here, like really weird phrases. Now this book does jump a lot, like it really does jump a lot, which I didn't have an issue with. The main thing for me was some of the side characters, I felt as though they didn't get enough time on the page. I don't want to give anything too much away, but there's a character on here that she does something that changes everything for Iovi, and I kind of wanted more of that, or like some sort of like a bit more appearances of her, because at one point she just literally just disappears, and I was like, okay. These were two women during that time that had to, not only because they were black, but they were in this relationship, and it was really interesting when you see them. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not, but when you see when Iovi goes to another place and she sees like the huge difference, not only in like Texas and Kansas, but outside of the U.S. It's really interesting, and I really enjoyed that part, seeing the contrast between these different cities during that time. Not only how they handled race, but also like their sexuality, and then all of the events that's happening within that time. I gave it 4 stars out of 5 on Goodreads. If you read any of those books that I mentioned, let me know what you think about it. Until then, I'll see you guys till later. Bye!